Dig until you tell me to stop. Sure thing, Pops. By user barjack521. Obligatory posting on mobile, so formatting, blah, blah, blah. So now the story. So this happened back when the Earth was young and MTV still played music videos in the ancient age known as 1997. I was 13 and spending yet another weekend helping my dad with yard work and home improvement projects. Not complaining, I learned a lot about home repair, and rather than get a shitty teen job in retail, my dad paid me to assist him up until I left for college. Now, just because I didn't hate it doesn't mean I was a little 13-year-old shit, however. On this day, we were putting up a trellis in the garden for plants to grow up. Simple job, sink 2 posts, cement them in place, and fit the trellis between them. My dad gave me a post hole digger, which, if you're not familiar with, looks like someone glued chopsticks to a pistachio shell so you could open and close it with a hinge. He showed me the spot for the first post and said, dig it as deep as you can. So I went and made a foot-deep hole, thinking that was enough to sink the 6-foot posts we had. He comes back and tells me not to be lazy and dig deeper. In fact, keep digging until I tell you it's deep enough. So that's where my malicious compliance came in. I knew he would be back from the garage in about half an hour, so I went to town on this hole. I didn't stop for a break and just kept digging until the post hole digger fit in the hole completely, and I couldn't open it to lift dirt out. At that point, I taped a spade to a branch and made the hole even deeper. When he came back, he said something along the lines of, "Let's see if you did it properly this time," and he drops the 6-foot post into the hole where it promptly disappears. There was a momentary look of shock on his face, then he started laughing, like bent over, can't catch your breath laughing. To this day, I have never seen a man laugh as hard as that. When he was done, he told me that I guess I did what he told me, but now I would have to figure out how to fish the post out of the hole. Luckily, it was only a foot or so below the surface, and we got it out easily enough. So to this day, my dad still tells this story as a warning about giving vague instructions. Are you sure you want to do this? By the book. By user Tosspot99. Many moons ago, I spent my youth in the army. I worked in comms and spent some excellent years doing dumb shit with some of the best guys and girls you could ever meet. One of those years of my misspent youth, I was deployed to a hot and sandy location. This length of deployment was unusual for me, as most deployments in the British Army are 6 months. The extra time was due to us being one of the first units deployed, and after supporting the initial deployment, they requested volunteers to remain and support and train some of the relieving units and newly deployed logistics headquarters. At this stage in my career, I had been lucky enough to jump from deployment to deployment, and I was loving the extra money that gave me, so I happily volunteered to stay. I was tasked with supporting one of the logistics HQs. I'd run that detachment earlier in the deployment and was happy to return, as it was far away from the main HQ and all the bored adults and seniors that the AQ brings. Think sweeping the desert, the kind of thing. Our little detachment was a oasis in a sea of bullshit. It was just 6 guys and girls with me as the detachment commander. I was a corporal, full screw. At the time, the isolated nature of our det meant that anyone sent there had to be able to operate independently, be very adaptable and open to improvise to support where required. Our main unit also liked to send us their troublemakers, but due to the nature of the det, they could only send us people who could do their role also. So I ended up with all the best and most interesting scum of my unit, and it was amazing. For any Yanks reading, it would have been AF or Mafia paradise. Within weeks, we had a patio and rock garden set up.
We had a BBK pit, shower area, gym. We'd sorted a deal with the local civilian contractors for us to receive beer in exchange for our help in vehicle and generator servicing.
The best part was due to us being a comms det. It was restricted entry to our area, so we were free from any surprise visits. Now that I've set out the backstory, I'll get on to the malicious compliance. The 8K we were supporting was regularly rotating its senior non-commissioned officers, SENCO, and officers from the deployment. They'd do the minimum time to qualify for a medal, and they'd get replaced with someone new. It was a shitty practice that eventually got shut down, but not till much later deployments. We were fairly used to this by now, and the only overhead we had is creating new accounts for the seniors. The guys who actually did the work, my peer group in the HU, stayed the same mostly. This latest rotation saw the old regimental quartermaster sergeant, or CAMS, being replaced by a newly promoted RCAMS. This new guy was a prick, full of his own self-importance. Hated that we had a little island of bullshit-free tranquility within his eyesight. I'd see him pacing outside our fence line when he first arrived, unable to comprehend that he wasn't allowed to just walk in. By this point, I had been in this location for about 6 months, and I was thoroughly past the point of giving any fucks. The Archeans hated that he had to deal with me, a lowly full screw, as OC of the debt, and myself and crew of reprobates was out of his chain of command. One day he absolutely lost his shit because we were baking half a goat and had invited a few of his guys to join us after work for some beers and delicious goat wraps. By this stage, we'd used Hessian to fence off our Boghan bar area so that we could obscure it from prying eyes. He went off to get some of his unit's regimental police, ARPs, these are not real military police, just jobs worths with no real job in a unit, to come and shut us down. I told them to jog on. They weren't getting in my debt, and I don't care who sent them. Apparently, the next day, he was apoplectic. The guys who worked with him warned us he was determined to bring my debt to heel. His solution was removing our welfare package that we were issued through his department as a favor from his guys for some services that we were providing. It consisted of a small fridge, TV, and British Forces Broadcasting Service TV decoder.
Peace box. The conversation went roughly as thus.
RKMs. Couple tosspot. It appears that there has been a paperwork error and you have been given one of my welfare packages by mistake. Me. Okay, sir. I'd be happy to fill that in. Shall I drop by your office? RKMs. You can drop by my office and bring the package, but you won't be filling in any paperwork, couple. You may have wrangled the last RK, but as far as I'm concerned, you lot can do one if you think you're getting that welfare package back off me. And if there's anything else that I find that isn't 100 correct paperwork-wise, then I'd be shutting that right down. You may not be mine, and I may not be able to enter you little compound, but I'm going to have you son. Every recept demand, every transport request better be completed correctly. I'm going to make your lives hell with paperwork and admin. Qui malicious compliance. Me. I'm sorry to hear that, sir. I'm sorry you feel the service that we provide isn't good enough. The old Arcones was very happy with services that he was getting from us and sent over the spare welfare package as a thank you. Are you sure that it's paperwork that's the issue here? Are you not happy with phones and the internet? Archeans. Couple. I have not complaints regarding the comms. You just need to complete the correct paperwork and have it authorized by me. At this point, it is clear that he is never going to authorize the return of the welfare package and is very smug about it. Me. Okay, sir. You're of course correct. Paperwork is essential. Archeans. Are you giving me attitude, cool? Me. Not at all, sir. Just agreeing with you. To be clear, you are happy with everything else we provide to the HA. You just want me to complete the correct paperwork? Or a chemist? That's correct, fool. Me. No problem, sir. Happy to oblige. I delivered the welfare package back to his stores. His guys were very apologetic. I told them not to worry. You see, the welfare package was a thank you for all the extra phone lines and terminals that we'd provided for the previous work zones. These expanded his and his unit's working capacity. Most importantly, I had run a phone line to the sleeping areas so that him and his lads could call home without using their limited welfare phone cards. I'd also laid some precious unfiltered internet lines too. Internet to deployed units is very rare, and unfiltered internet is almost unheard of for British units. What I was providing was immense value to lonely squatties, and it was also without paperwork. When I got back to my debt, I flicked a couple of switches, turning off all the paperwork, less connections. I waited for the inevitable. It didn't take long. The first visitor was one of the privates letting us know that he'd been cut off mid-call back home. I apologized and explained what was going on with the workings. He understood, not happy about it, but understood. He went off muttering about throbbers who can't leave well enough alone. The next was one of the Archimedes' full screws, who I have a lot of time for. She came around and asked what was going on with the comms. She was in the office when I had the conversation with the Archeans earlier. We had a bit of chat about what a belter he is, and then she asked what was going on. I explained that as per the Archeans' request, we are following his example and doing things by the book, and I've turned off all services without the correct paperwork. She looked at me knowingly. So what does that mean, she asked. I explained that the only services that I'd been ordered to provide were for the Hake. The rest would have to request them through me and be approved by Division EQ as per orders. I handed her a copy of the request forms to be completed in triplicate as I didn't have a photocopier, and they couldn't send me it by email, as I just turned their kit off. She had a bit of a chuckle and went off back to her boss, paperwork in hand. You see, the only orders I had were for the 6 lines in terminal in the HQ. The 30-odd lines I'd laid extra were essentially me being a good bloke and supporting the mission and departments as they grew around the hawk. It was initiative and adaptability on my part. These were all now off, and I had a steady stream of visitors throughout the day wanting to know what was going on. I directed them all the Ryarkiums who had the request forms. My last visitor was the operations captain. He was a top bloke, a late entry, Lee, officer, had gone through the ranks from private to regimental sergeant major, SM, and was now commissioned as an officer who had spent more than a few nights in our compound with a beer and talking shit with us. He was one of the very first recipients of a private line and internet. He asked me what was going on. He'd been around the houses, so he knew there were shenanigans afoot. I told him the situation. His face dropped. "Leave it with me," is all that he said, and off he went. 30 minutes later, the RKMs was back at the entrance to my compound with the welfare package. The ops captain was with him, looming over him as only our ZEM, or former ZEM in this case, can. Me. "Hello, sir. How can I help?" RKMs. Very sheepishly. "Hello, Cole. There seems to have been an error, and we've found your paperwork for the welfare package. So I'm returning it with my apologies." Me. "No need to apologize, sir. Easy mistake to make." RKMs. "So, are we good?" Me. "And the other paperwork moving forward?" RKMs. "There's no need for all that." Looking over his shoulder at the ops captain. "We are, after all, on the same team." Me. "We are indeed, sir." I look over my shoulder and give one of my guys a nod. "I think you'll find everything is now back to as it was." RKMs. "Excellent. Thank you very much, Cole." And off he went. The ops captain stared daggers at him as he left. He just gave me a nod and confirmed that drinks were still on for the next day and toddled off back to his pit. I was never bothered by the Rarcons again, and if you're living in my house, you'll follow my rules. By user additional 55. My male hair got quite long when I was in my senior year of high school. In a pearl-clutching southern town, this got me a fair amount of flack, but the worst was from my dad. He'd always been kind of a tyrant, and his anger was unbearable in my later teens, so I avoided him as much as possible around the house. One day, he decided he'd had enough of my long hair, so he walked behind me with scissors and snipped them menacingly. I jumped up and snapped at him, and he shouted back something to the effect of, "If you're living under my roof, you'll follow my rules." So the next day, while he was at work, I moved out. I didn't even say bye. Living in my own apartment while in high school was fun and had some perks. When I skipped class, the school would call my apartment to tell me, "Your child was not at school today, lol." Edit. He didn't actually cut my hair. Also, the fallout was that he was a lot better to be around from then on. I think he realized that if he wanted to have a relationship with his son, he was going to have to not be such a, what. Sure, we can follow the contract. By user feisty B7779. I work as an account manager for a food distribution company. I have an NDA, so I can't disclose the type of materials or type of project. So that will be relatively vague, but the story is still good. Okay, so we work with a chain account and service all of their locations in our state. This is a relatively small but global chain that is historically very challenging to work with. Management is aggressive, pushy, just not nice. Our company is a tiny, family-owned and operated company full of nice goofballs. We don't take things too seriously, provide great service, and put up with, honestly, way too much from them. We're their contracted distributor. There are a few items in the contract that no one follows and hasn't followed for years. One of those being monthly pricing audits. No one from their corporate had ever asked for it, but we never brought it up because our pricing is not always consistent with the contracted price we are supposed to charge the locations. Reason being is we're often able to get a product for cheaper elsewhere and also sell to our other accounts outside of this chain. So we're not always compliant, but it's always for the benefit of the customer. Well, our direct contact at the company quit, and the head honcho over there stepped in to take her place. He insisted that we begin sending monthly pricing audits per the contract. Mind you, this guy is just nasty. I've had to drive around to every location in the state to recover a product the locations use less than one case a year of because they wanted to teach us a lesson for running out of something one time. They assign us complaint forms that I have to go into their site and resolve the complaint. It's usually about something stupid. X. You just said that you were going to receive a product on this day, but you didn't tell us if you got it yet. Please write out your 5-step action plan and solution to being better partners to us. So anyways, we dragged out the audits for a while, but were unable to avoid it. So we brought up another item in the contract that had been neglected in attempts to be like, if you're going to enforce this, we're going to enforce the whole contract. It stated that if we were carrying an item for this account that moved less than X number of cases a week, that we would be able to charge a storage fee per month that it sat in our warehouse. They said, yes, we need to be following the contract 100. Well, we found that almost 90s of the products did not move X number of cases a week and were eligible for a storage fee to be added on. The language stated that we were to also charge for the months that it sat in the warehouse that we did not charge storage, which meant that there were items that had a price increase of $30 per case. That's ridiculous, especially for a restaurant in our state. We alerted the company and said, hey, while this would be more money for us, we really don't want to do that to our customers. They said, it didn't matter, and we had to follow the contract, and if any stores complained, I was to send them directly to their corporate rep. So the updated contract pricing went into effect, effectively bumping up pricing on their most popular items by about 10s, and the storage pricing by about 30 on their lowest moving items, increasing overall pricing by about 25. Stores are livid. It totally sucks for them, and I feel super badly about it, but it's a result of their corporate being a holes. The best part is now I get these complaint things about pricing all day long, and I just get to tag their corporate representatives to deal with it instead. I have less work, and we make about 25 more off an account. They wanted us to follow the contract, right? Micromanager gets what she asked for. By a user according sugar, 520. So someone in my department at work isn't pulling their weight, so everyone in the department across all branches has to now do this little tally sheet of how much of each task we do every day and how long it takes us. I call it a babysitting sheet. We've been doing them for a year as of May 1st. At this point, most managers don't care if we turn it in every day, as long as we get them in every day, as long as we get them in every week. But one manager is a micromanager of my branch. It's been a busy week. I was going to send management my sheets at the end of the week like a lot of other people do. Instead, the micromanager from another branch emails me like, oh, I haven't gotten any sheets from you in a week, and doesn't even CC my manager on the email. So she wanted the sheets. I sent her an apology email. Then I sent each sheet in a separate email and separate attachment. So now she has 5 emails from me in her inbox. And to be petty, since she asks us to write everything we do all day, wrote emailed manager my tally sheet, and then put 5 tallies next to it. Not the most juicy malicious compliance, but I'm pretty satisfied with my level of passive aggression today.